We have to be aware that people follow the capital and people follow the ecosystem that's best for them. Capital and people can move around freely in the European Union. We have to give them reasons either to come or at least to stay. We have to mobilize the capital that's here already. It's not like there's no capital in Austria. It's just not in the venture ecosystem yet. So we need to create the incentives needed to mobilize that capital, get it into funds, get it into the startups, and give our startup ecosystem the chance to grow and prosper.
Hello and welcome to Let's Talk About Tech. Today's guest here with me is Patrik Cesky. Hello, Patrik.
Hello, Berthold. Good to meet you.
Patrik came to us from Gründungsfonds, which is the Austrian Founders Fund. Gründungsfonds is the Austrian word for Founders Funds. It's publicly funded with 72 million euros, the new fund of the Austrian government. And you took office just lately on the 15th of January. Congratulations.
That's right. Thank you, Berthold.
As always here in Let's Talk About Tech, we start a little bit with the background story. So who's Patrik? I know you originally started as a law student and then decided to switch into business administration, but you also have been a very competitive sports guy.
Yes, that's right. As you said, I started off studying law. Didn't really like that too much. Then focused on my first professional life as an athlete. I was sailing competitionally and in that capacity competing worldwide in different competitions. But to be fair, I wasn't good enough to make it to the Olympics, so I had to look into my second career, right? And I've always been good with numbers. I've always liked being around people, and I think if that applies to you, you look into business studies, and that's essentially what I did. And yeah, during the studies, I also worked in different areas. And in the end, after I finished a bachelor's degree, I met someone who was already in the scene and who kind of convinced me to join ARAX, a small Austrian VC, as an investment analyst in 2010, quite a while ago. And there we go. That's how I started my way in VC and worked my way up until then.
And in ARAX, you also became, after quite a while, an interim CEO of one of the companies. And you managed this company for 3 years. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. ARAX had a deep tech and biotech focus in Austria. And as you know, some companies in the portfolio, they go really well. Some companies, they don't go well at all. They go bankrupt pretty soon. And then you have a really wide midfield, so to say. You don't really know what's going to happen with those companies. And one of those companies lost the CEO at that time. So I stepped in and, changed the direction a little bit. They were focused on clinical development of an asset, a very, very risky game, as people who are active in this area know quite well. And I focused on the core competencies in a product that was already on the market, already making revenue. So we tried to grow organically in that area, and that worked really well. Took 3 years though to get the company to a point where we could essentially sell it. And yeah, that was my end in the company, and also at ARAX, because at the end of that time, 2021, I switched over to Erste Bank, to the corporate side. Yeah.
But also you stayed in private equity. And I think it's incrementally important that you have this sleeves up mentality and that you have worked actually operational wise within a startup. How did that help you when you then joined the private capital market side of Erste Group, one of the largest banking groups here in CEE?
I think it really helps you to gain the perspective on the founders. It's really different looking at something from high above, so the bird's view, so to say. But when you've been on the ground dealing with the same problems that the founders deal on a daily basis, you just look at the problems in a different way. And also, every founder makes mistakes in every stage of the startup lifecycle. And for sure, I've made some of those mistakes too. And if you have been through that, I think you can help people to avoid those pitfalls and focus on other things, focus on growing their business without having to worry about the little things that can go wrong. So that certainly helped me looking at startups, evaluating them, and also then managing them as part of a portfolio where we are invested.
I always like this picture of a jockey and a horse, right? Jockey being the founder, right? And the horse being his business model or the company he's riding or driving. Now, when I could assume when you then step into the role of a fund manager, it is hard to explain that jockeys are more important than the horse that they're currently riding, right? Did you see that your learnings were perceived well and that they got included into the mechanisms, scoring methods, analytics, the preparation, if you should invest in a deal or not, so in the due diligence? Was there something that you could get across, or was there a barrier?
No, there was no barrier at all. I think, or I believe that's why they hired me in the first place, because I had this blend of startup experience and VC experience. And we sat together on a table several times and discussed, okay, how do we rate the companies? How do we conduct due diligence? What do we look at in a very deep way? What are the crucial points? And I think drawing from my experience, that really helped us gain maybe a more practical view on what's important in that kind of due diligence than you would see from a corporate fund that might not have that experience in-house and has to source it from different sources.
I think that's often a perspective that can be wrong, right? When you deal with a venture fund from a large corporate, that the people there have no startup experience at all. So here, actually, the bank did well, right, in hiring you. But then again, you got promoted and you took over office here in this governmentally funded venture vehicle, which is one of the largest seed stage investment firms now. So this very early stage investments you look at today, what are key criteria that are important for you as a fund? What is the strategy of the fund?
Yeah. So the fund already has its predecessor, Gründungsfonds, which is a 2013 vintage. And I think it has been doing quite well. It has always focused on the seed stage in Austria. It has always put a great emphasis on a complementary, well-educated, ambitious founder team. It has always put a lot of focus on a good business model, and I think we've always tried to ask a lot from the founders at an early stage. I think people are often surprised at the depth of information that we need to decide on an investment. They often tell us, "Oh, you look much deeper into things than maybe some other companies do." For one, reason why we do so, it is because it is state money, it is tax money that has been allocated to us, and we have to take very good care of it. But on the other hand, it's may become our brand or trademark. Yeah, we are there. We look into things very deeply. We try to help the founders implement processes, for example, reporting that they will need down the road anyways, because when we go in and seed, of course, our aim is to make it to a Series A round. Yeah? And in that capacity, as a good seed investor, we see it as our responsibility to equip the founders and the company with the tools to get there as best prepared as possible.
I really like the concept of the German high-tech Gründerfonds. Right, the high-tech fund of the government or close to the government, similar like your fund is related in Germany. Now they're much bigger, I know, right? But what they do in seed stage is they pretty much just match investments, right? So if you come as an early stage company, it's your first round, you already have your business angels in the pipeline, they'd very fast decide and just match a funding or give you a ticket, right, to join in, and then they see how things develop. This is different in your approach.
That is different in our approach, and I think it has to be different. As you said, we have a fund volume of 72 million, and 72 million you can administrate that by yourself easily. You can even choose the best companies and go in as a lead investor, be the anchor investor in Austria. and then try to get into international investors. But I think for high-tech Gründerfonds, they've just simply evolved and became too big to do that. They are a multi-billion euro fund at the moment, and they cannot do too many lead investments as well. And since the German ecosystem is a little better developed than what we find here in Austria, that approach works off really well for them, because there are others who come, take the lead. High-tech Gründerfonds then chips in as well, and it's easy to form a successful consortium and make it to the next rounds. And I think we should take this as a blueprint for Austria as well. And I think the performance of the first iteration of the Gründerfonds speaks for that. Like the fund has a positive IRR, it has a good TVPI. Of course, it's not wound up yet. It's still up and running. But it looks like at the end of the day, we will have a good performance. And I hope that in the future, people will acknowledge that, and that we will be successful in making the entire thing a little bigger, and helping the Austrian startup ecosystem evolve to the next stage.
I mean, the 72 million were the first close, right? We'll get to the potential for a second close, and maybe also invite one or the other institution to get in contact with you to actually increase the volumes that you have under management. But first and foremost, more interesting is, with the first fund, you were focused only on Austrian investments. Now,
right.
In the second fund, you are technically allowed to also invest in foreign companies that would create value in Austria. So be it like an R&D subsidiary or a meaningful entity that drives business here for Europe, maybe with an Austrian entity.
Yes.
How far can you go?
That remains to be seen. This concept is something that we poached actually from high-tech Gründerfonds. They do that as well, and they've done successfully so. So we have to see. I mean, naturally, if we look around the DACH region, if we look into CEE, there's a lot of countries around us who have smart people and good universities, probably some spin-offs that face the challenges of a really, really badly developed startup ecosystem, especially in Eastern Europe. So I think there's lots of potential for them to maybe even move here entirely, or to set up some R&D facilities. And I don't know yet where it's going to go. If someone sees this maybe and contacts us, we can work it out together. But at the moment, we're already looking at some. We have to see at the end of the day how many will make the cut and how many we can invest in.
Are you open only for, I would say, the wider European Union, or can it also be a company from, let's say, Japan that wants to have a European headquarters and build something meaningful here in Austria? Because, I mean, I know a company from Japan that actually has their production and the most important development entity as a subsidiary here in Austria, which is a fantastic brand. Unfortunately, they have decided to collect more money in the US, but maybe the next case down the road could be interesting. Could they approach you as well, or must it be European Union at least?
Not defined in the rules. So technically, anyone can come. But I think it would be easiest to start with the regions that have a common mindset, a common culture. It probably would be the easiest to start in the DACH regions. And once we have managed that, who knows who else can follow.
Okay, very cool. So maybe some of our Japanese friends, if you want to have a link, I can help you with that. Culture-wise, I think the Japanese are not so far away as people would think, but the language is a little bit of a barrier.
Fair enough, yeah.
That I would agree. Now, we have mentioned that the fund technically could also grow with additional investors. Now, the first
That's
fund
right,
also used to have Erste Group as a co-investor with the government. And this is something you're aiming for, again, also with the second fund.
Yes, I think at the moment we've avoided the quite fundraising cycle with a negative momentum in the past 1.5 years, and I think we'll be ready by the end of summer to onboard interesting parties to look at co-investing with us or investing into the fund with us. And as I said before, Gründerfonds 1, the first iteration, it has a good performance. It's benefiting Austria. It's benefiting the startup ecosystem. It's benefiting our innovation mindsets in general. And I think if anyone wants to foster that and maybe make a little profit on an investment, then that's definitely a good pitch.
I'm pretty sure you will do more than just a little investment. I don't want to get you uncomfortable. I know that these questions about fundraising in these difficult times is always harsh. Now, looking at with your experience at the Austrian market, how is the state of venture capital? Where do we need improvements? Where is, on a European level, things that we can learn? What would be suggestions that you would have if, I don't know, a minister for economic affairs would ask you, or a financial minister would ask you, how can we improve as Austria, one of the most innovative hubs in history in the European Union? How can we get back up there to be number one again? What is needed?
What is needed? A couple of changes and I think a couple of quick fixes. We now have introduced Flexco, a much easier form of incorporation for companies. We've had a new employee stock option program implemented in the law code recently. Those are small steps in the right direction, but I think they have the potential, if we're a little more brave and if we're a little more focused on what we really need, to take one step further and really be on the same level as other countries who do it much better than we do. If you look into Great Britain, if you look into France, I think startups find a much better legal framework than they would find it here at the moment. And we have to be aware that people follow the capital and people follow the ecosystem that's best for them. Capital and people can move around freely in the European Union. So we have to give them reasons either to come or at least to stay. And I think we have to mobilize the capital that's here already. It's not like there's no capital in Austria. It's just not in the venture ecosystem yet. So we need to create the incentives needed to mobilize that capital, get it into funds, get it into the startups, and give our startup ecosystem the chance to grow and prosper.
So now, quite typical for Western Europe, right? We have a lot of money locked up in pension funds, in insurances. Banks obviously have their hands on big deposits, right? Also, the central bank itself, right, is one of the largest investors. Now, how do we attract this capital for venture capital, for innovation? What would be needed that this capital can be? I mean, it can be already, right? But that this capital is deployed more strongly in venture capital and private equity.
That's a very tough question, to be honest, because I think the roots for this are very deeply rooted, perhaps as well in our culture and the way that our capital market is structured. Because if you look at our capital markets, the imperfect Austrian capital market, we have potential to improve from the earliest stage possible of a company incorporation and the latest stage possible in this venture and private equity life cycle. So the IPOs as well. So I think we have to start from the beginning, to be honest. Make it, go to the schools, introduce better curriculums that take into account how important it is to foster innovations, how important it is to create new companies that try to disrupt markets and, in the end, sustain the wealth that we have here in Austria. Because if we do not develop in that direction, in the end, we're going to lose some of our wealth because all the countries around us who know and who have taken the right choices will just, be further and further away for us to keep up. Yeah.
Right. I mean, the entrepreneurial mindset and entrepreneurial education definitely is key. I would agree on that. But I would also say that tax-wise, we have to put some improvements into place because, I mean, it's not a secret, right? Austria, aside of Germany and Italy, these are the countries with the highest tax rate, right, in the European Union. And obviously, I mean, everybody is cautious of what to do, right, with the money that they have earned, taxed hard. Now they want to reinvest it. And they would maybe also look for a tax discount or an attractive structure, how to invest. And then again, this ends up with wealth being parked in foundations, and then the foundations cannot invest anymore into high risk and SMEs, right? So I would think that also on the tech side of things, to mobilize capital on the short term, this would be also something where we should go into negotiations.
Like I said, there are other countries that have implemented tax breaks like that. France, Great Britain, and other countries followed suit. So whatever mobilizes this capital, be it tax breaks or other incentives, I think we seriously need to think about this in the future to stay competitive.
Well, then let's hope that some of the economic researchers are also watching us. You need to explain our politicians how incredibly valuable it is that entrepreneurs create companies, create jobs, and how this actually helps us to sustain our wealth as a society. It was great chatting with you, Patrik.
Likewise.
I learned a lot of things. I will definitely have the new fund, Gründungsfonds, on the radar. I hope we see each other also in co-investments. Thanks you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe and tune in for the next episode.
Thank you.